5 letters, endless questions, and total panic. FAFSA feels like one of those mysteries where everyone seems to assume you already know the answer, but no one actually explains it. I mean, you hear it talked about in hallways, you read it on the deadline reminders, maybe a jump scare if somebody asks you, have you done it yet? No. But here's the thing. Once you shine a light on it, FAFSA isn't nearly as scary as it seems. It's actually solvable. So tonight, we're cracking the case on FAFSA. In a special 1-hour episode, we're going to demystify, decode, and figure out what's really hiding behind all that financial aid paperwork. Spoiler alert, it's money for college, right? And you deserve to know how to get it. I'm Loy from GCC's online learning team, and this is episode 8, Who's Afraid of FAFSA? We brought in an expert investigator to help us tonight. Christina Morillaro from the Adult Educational Opportunity Center is here. Christina, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what AEOC does?
Yes. Okay. So as Loy mentioned, my name's Christina. I am the director of the TRIO Adult Educational Opportunity Center, which is commonly known as AEOC at Genesee Community College. So we are a federal grant that's sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education that supports adults and young adults in 6 counties in Western New York with their educational goals. So we work with a lot of GCC students, but it's not just GCC. We help them with college exploration, college applications, trade school applications, career exploration, and honestly, our bread and butter is financial aid. So we go through so many financial aid trainings, and I feel way more comfortable when it comes to knowing about financial aid now than when I actually was an undergrad student. I knew nothing about it. It was just something that I did every year that my sisters had to remind me to do. And I'd always be worried, like, wait, did I just wait too long? Am I not going to have money for school this year? And as someone who was paying for school myself, it was very scary. I just didn't understand it. And then after college, I worked for AmeriCorps Vista and did that. And it was anti-poverty work in Rochester, and I loved it. After AmeriCorps Vista, I worked for TRIO Upward Bound, so working with high school students with similar activities as I do now, but a much smaller caseload. And here I am in this program, working mostly with adults.
Right, and we are very glad that you're here. Because we were talking last week. I was talking with Patricia Rowland. Thank you, and we were talking about all kinds of things that have to do with withdrawing from classes. And we got to financial aid, and we were both like, "Okay, we're going to send you over to financial aid on this one because we don't ever want to give you a wrong answer on financial aid," right?
Right. And financial aid, they are the experts, and we're pretty darn good, but we always go to financial aid even when we have questions. I think what's really important is that we don't pretend like we have all the answers. We're always going to seek out more answers if we need to.
Right. Well, college is a place for seeking out answers, or at least it should be. All right, so it's great to know everything that you do for our students here, and for students across Western New York, too. So before we jump into some common questions that students had, I've heard you've got some fascinating history about FAFSA that will help make the whole thing make a little bit more sense. Can you share that with us?
Yes. Okay, so it may not be about the FAFSA itself. We'll go into, what is the FAFSA, why you fill it out, what are the different pieces that you can get from it. And I wanted to share a story about one of the main pieces that you get from the FAFSA if you qualify, which is called the Pell Grant. So this is a grant that supports students from limited income to receive federal funds to support their education. So it covers their tuition. It often will cover additional fees. People can use it towards books. If there's enough money, it can go towards room and board. That's really not the case anymore. But in general, this has a very long history, and everything with financial aid comes from legislation. So as a quick story or just an anecdote. I just wanted to share that everything that to do with financial aid comes from the Higher Education Act of 1965. And so when you think about things like, nothing will ever change with financial aid, that's not actually true. It changes all the time, because the Higher Education Act is the law that allowed many of the things that we know and love today with higher ed to exist. And actually, it's supposed to get reauthorized every few years. And so in one of the amendments years, when it was reauthorized in 1972, there was this one senator in Rhode Island. His name was Senator Claiborne Pell. He was a key advocate for federal student aid, and he was the lead advocate for this Pell Grant program. He didn't call it that because he wasn't going to name it after himself. But he named it the Basic Educational Opportunity Grant. It was to provide direct aid to low-income students, not to the colleges directly, but just to the students. And it was such a success. He was able to work with a senator from New York State, Senator Jacob Javits, or Javits. I apologize if I got the pronunciation wrong. But together, they were able to make this bipartisan effort to support students with their education. So why am I bringing up all of this? I know this EOC director who is from Rhode Island who knew Senator Pell and knew him in the 70s and the 80s and beyond. And she told me this wonderful story about how when he came to visit, he was a true advocate for all TRIO programs. I'll say that first. He really believed in the power of people to use education to change their circumstances. And so our national organization that supports professionals in TRIO programs, which is what I'm part of, they invited Senator Pell to come speak. And so in this room of people who work in college access, that support first-generation students, who support limited income students, so it was a massive room, and he came to speak. Well, afterwards, it didn't matter which state you were from. It didn't matter your political party or persuasion. Everyone stood in line to shake this man's hand, to thank him for the work that he did, because most of those directors and staff benefited from those grants. And if it wasn't for the Basic Educational Opportunity Grant, which later became renamed the Pell Grant, they wouldn't be in the positions that they are today. And I hear that all the time from my colleagues. If they got a Pell Grant in school, they always say, like, I would not be here, I would not have this degree if this program didn't exist. So I guess the line was wrapped around in the hallway, around corners. Like, it lasted a long time, that meet and greet. But he was so shocked and really humbled by the experience. So he continued to fight for education.
Wow. One person really made a huge difference, it sounds like.
Yes.
Well, and I'm a Tappan Pell, student college graduate myself. So I know I would not have been in college, and I would not be where I am if it wasn't for those grants.
I mean, our president at the college, he has said in our at our first Gen College celebration last year, he spoke about how he was a Pell eligible student, and he wouldn't be where he is today if he didn't have that program.
Right, and I'm going to take a moment, because you're talking about Dr. Lamb, right?
Yes. Sorry.
It's okay. And so I'm just going to take a moment and plug to everybody who's listening that our college president, Dr. Craig Lamb, he will be on this program on October 30th. So if you have any questions for the college president, he's going to come and answer them.
Wow, that's so exciting.
I know. We have such a wonderful... We have such a wonderful staff here. When we started the podcast, I asked people, do you want to be on it? And I'm sort of hoping, I get 2 or 3. And I have so many people coming out of the woodwork that all of the slots are filled for the semester and into the spring. Because everyone wants to talk to the students.
I mean, I think we all just really want to help where we can. And it's tough because we can't always reach every single student at the college. So if there's a way, like a podcast, to reach a larger audience, then, we're going to take advantage of that, because our goal is just to support our students.
Well, I'm glad, for one thing, I am glad they renamed it the Pell Grant, because the Basic Educational Opportunity Grant, the BEOG grant, would not be... Not quite. Doesn't roll off the tongue, right?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, let's actually talk about some FAFSA questions here. So we'll dive into segment one, and I'm calling it Cracking the Code. We'll start at the beginning of our investigation here. So a lot of students hear FAFSA, and they just immediately feel overwhelmed because it's a big boogeyman out there. So can you break down what the FAFSA is, like in the simplest terms possible? What is it? Why does it matter?
Okay, so first of all, the FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That is pretty self-explanatory, just in the fact that it's free, and that's an application to hopefully get some type of federal student aid. But the way that I explain it when I do presentations is that it is an application that the federal government puts out to every student that they can apply for to see if they qualify for what would be a Pell Grant and or what they qualify for in terms of direct loans. And the FAFSA is the basis for determining different families and different students' financial need when it comes to different colleges. And so it's really important to fill it out, which I think I moved ahead because you're like, sorry about that. I always just have to say that. It's just everyone should be filling it out. You have to fill it out once a year. And when you fill it out, it'll just determine what you qualify for. And I'll wait.
It's okay. So you're mentioning federal a lot, and I have a question, and it's not on our list, so I apologize. But what about state financial aid? Does the FAFSA have anything to do with that?
So the FAFSA is a completely separate application because it's federal financial aid or federal student aid. The state has their own type of grants and awards that they give out. So the most common one that students get and receive is the Tuition Assistance Program, which is TAP, the TAP Award. I received TAP in college. There's also programs like the Excelsior Scholarship. There's also other programs like, I can't remember all the names of them because the state has a bunch. Some that are related to different college degree programs. And some are related to, like if you have a mixed immigration status and whatnot. But with the state application, some things from the FAFSA will transfer into the state application, but not everything. So it's really important that you fill out the FAFSA. And then if you're a New York State resident, then you fill out the TAP application. And if you're a student who does get Excelsior, then you fill out the Excelsior program scholarship.
So it's FAFSA first before anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
Theoretically, you can do state first, but the state application will not transfer into the federal application. So you might as well get the federal application done first.
Because that's going to save you time.
It'll save you time. And also the state's application is a little more cumbersome currently.
Okay. That's, no comment.
They have fewer people working for them. That's all.
That's true. That is true. All right. So that tells us what FAFSA is. And now let's talk about when. So there's always talk about deadlines and students worrying that they've missed the window. When should students fill out FAFSA, and what happens if they're late?
Okay. So we have to talk about timelines and academic years. And, okay, we're currently in the 25-26 academic year. So if you wanted to fill out the FAFSA and you started in the fall, you could have started since last October. I think it actually came out in December because they were making edits, but every year it's supposed to open October 1st. So when it opens on October 1st, what they want people to do is fill it out for the next academic year. So like right now, people are filling out the 26-27 application. Years and years ago, it used to be open up in January. And when it was open in January, sometimes it was too short of a deadline or crunch time. And so financial aid advisors actually advocated for it to get moved to October. So that's why it opens in October. They also asked to use prior year because back in January, if you were trying to get last year's or like, when you're filing taxes, tax season gets really hectic. It opens up in January. So they really wanted to make the process a little less cumbersome for those students and their families. So October is when it opens. If you're a person who is in school right now and you're thinking, oh no, I did not file financial aid, is that it? Am I done? The answer is no. You still have until, I believe it is June 30th of 2026.
To file for 25-26?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
But I will say I do get students who then figure this out and they're like, it's July 4th. Can I still do it? No, unfortunately. So sometimes students get really confused when financial aid sends out these emails of in June or May, they said, don't forget, fill out the form. And it's because they're sending it to people who may not have done it yet for this past academic year.
Okay.
So keep in mind, October 1st, it's open. Try to do it for the year ahead of time. And if you are worried that you're behind the 8 ball, I guess, then come to my program.
Right, and get it done as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Okay, so I want to throw a myth at you, or a rumor. I don't know if it's a myth or not. It's a rumor. And it was told to me when I was applying for financial aid for my kids, actually. They said that if you really, really need the financial aid, you should fill out your FAFSA as soon as possible after the deadline.
It's not necessarily all the federal grants. So Pell, they have like a set pool of money, but there's another pool of money called the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, SEOG. And sometimes at 4-year schools in particular, they might dole those out earlier than other funds, or there's institutional dollars that they're trying to give out to students. And so it's really important to try to do it earlier, especially at 4-year institutions, because there might be institutional aid that they're combining with your federal aid, combining with your state aid, where you could get more financial aid in terms of grant dollars and scholarships. But it's not necessarily like you're not going to lose the Pell Grant. Yes.
So better to do it sooner, but not necessarily, you're not lost if you wait until later.
No, if you do it in January, it's going to be okay. But I always try to have people to start in the fall, because you never know, like, if someone's going to be flagged for verification, which just means like you're randomly selected to provide additional info. And it's just to prevent fraud. It's not anything to do with you in particular. It's just it's a safekeeper thing.
Right.
So there's that, or sometimes there's bumps in the road because maybe you made a mistake on the form and it needs to get corrected. So that's why it's nice to get it done earlier too.
Okay, so we should always try to try in the fall to apply for the next fall.
Yes.
Okay.
So in the fall, apply for next fall. If you're a person who's like, wait, I'm going to start in January, you can still apply right now and you're good. You'll work with us.
Okay. All right, so that helps us out with our when. And then you talked a little bit about this, but let's talk about eligibility. So as students who wonder if they're even eligible for financial aid, federal financial aid, or maybe the family makes too much money, like, should they still be filling out the FAFSA?
Yes, always. Okay, so when people hear the term financial aid, I want to break this down. That financial aid means both the gift aid as well as the aid that you may pay back someday in loans. So when you hear colleges talk about 95% of students get financial aid, what they're talking about is 95% of their students could be getting a grant, and or they could be getting federal loans.
Right.
So Pell Grants are based on income. Direct loans, there's 2 different flavors of them, subsidized and unsubsidized. We don't have to talk about that at the moment, but the 2 different flavors, students that get subsidized, it's partially based off of income as well. But pretty much everyone qualifies for an unsubsidized loan. So that's why if your family makes too much, quote unquote, you can still qualify for financial aid.
Right.
Yes. It's just a matter of need-based grants versus loans.
Right. And I have heard about students who didn't think that they would use the financial aid, the loans, and then something happens, a laptop breaks. Or a car breaks.
Yes.
And you need to be able to finish out your semester so that money can come in handy, even if they weren't expecting to use it.
Right. It's tough because I know people are very fearful of loans, and I think there's a good reason why people are. But I've also shared in presentations and in conversations with students, like if you were to buy a car outright, you're not, if your budget is not for a Lamborghini or a Corvette, you're not going to finance that way. So, but most people do have to finance for a car. They're usually not paying outright in cash. Some people can, but not everyone can. So it's about making decisions that are well informed that will help you get to your goal. And if that could be taking out a loan, or not even all of it, but some of it, so it can help you get through the semester or the academic year, you have to do what you have to do.
And just because you qualify for a loan, that doesn't mean you have to take it,
No,
correct?
not at all. You can even just take part of it. So every first year student qualifies if they're dependent, so under 24, and, not meeting an outstanding circumstance, they can qualify upwards of $5,500 for the academic year. You split that in half for the fall, half for the spring. So say you don't need all of that money. Maybe you only need $2,000 to help, cover that gap. You can just say, I would like to take $2,000 out of that $5,500.
Right, and just buy yourself a new Mac.
Yeah.
All right, if you need one for class. Yeah,
don't buy the Mac if you're going to be a business major. No offense, but you're using Microsoft.
So many of our students do not understand that some of our majors here at GCC, the software for the classes does not run on Macs at all.
I know, and they're like, oh, but I have an iPhone and I want to have it seamlessly integrate. And it's like, well, you have to think about what is your field of study and what does the profession use. But that's a different story.
Right. That's another conversation. All right. We'll have that some other time. All right. So sounds like the first rule in this mystery is just file it. Just do it. Okay. And that's another space where students can get tripped up. So in the process of filling it out, starting with what do students really need to have ready? Like before you sit down to fill out the paperwork, what documents or what information should you get together?
Okay. Your tax returns. Just to start with that, you need to have your tax returns. Oftentimes I have students bring me their W-2s and they ask me, is this what you need? And I say, no, I need the tax return. And then I will, before they even meet with me, I give them a list. All my staff gives them a list of documents. So for your federal tax return, that's going to be your 1040 form. And for your state tax return, that's called the IT-201 for New York State. And when you get your taxes done, whether you go to a professional or you do it yourself, they always bundle it together. The 1040's in the front, and then the IT-201, the state taxes, are in the back. So when you're applying for whatever academic year, you go prior. So if you're applying for 26, 27, we go prior, and we need your 2024 tax return. So it's not just your tax return. If you are a dependent student, meaning you're under 24, you're not married, you don't have any children, you're not in the armed forces, you are not an orphan or a ward of the court or in foster care after age 13, you need your parents' information. And that's the really tough part, because sometimes the parents don't want to give the information, but they have to, it's required because that's just how the law is written around it currently. And that's for federal. So you need the tax returns. You need to have, you need to know your social security number. Your parents need to know their social security numbers if that's needed. If you are an adult student, like and you're married, you need to know your spouse's social security number. Other things like your driver's license, that's great for the state applications. If records of your unreported income, records of assets. So do you know what's in your bank account? If you're a person who likes to trade stocks for fun, do you know what the value of that is? That's not your retirement, though. So if you're like an individual who has a 401k or a pension, you don't need to report the value of that, but it's more of like the outside things. But there is a whole list of documents, and then but really the tax return's the big one.
Yeah, I think I seem to remember my husband talking about there was a change to the FAFSA where he was able to just give it his tax return, and it kind of filled in a whole bunch of stuff for him.
Yes. So the better, was it? I have the FAFSA Simplification Act created what is called the Better FAFSA. Whether or not is better, it's debatable. I will say that it has changed and evolved to simplify many pieces of it. But the FAFSA Simplification Act, it came out of Senator Alexander. He is from, where is he from? He's from Tennessee. So he was a senator who really wanted the Higher Education Act to be reauthorized, and Congress was just not having that as a priority. So, but he was so focused on getting this FAFSA simplified and changed that this was like his outgoing pre-retirement wish was to simplify it. So this act was created, and it created the FAFSA that changed over the last couple of years. And so it should be able to pull your tax information with your consent.
Right.
You have to provide consent, otherwise it will not pull it. There's some things that at times it won't pull it, like, did you get married that year? It won't pull it. Did you get a divorce that year? It won't pull the information. So I always say, please have the documents with you just in case there's an outstanding circumstance.
Right. That's always helpful. So, all right. We get our documents. We get our information together. Kind of walk us through this. Can you do it in one sitting? Do you plan for it to take longer? Is this like, how difficult is this process?
I think it depends on if you have what is called your FSA ID done already or not. That's your federal student aid ID. So this is what you use to fill out the FAFSA. It is both your digital signature and also your login for studentaid.gov, which is where you fill out the FAFSA. If you already have your FSA ID created, then we can usually get it done in one day, within an hour. If you do not have your FSA ID done, we often will have to help people create one. And then it takes the Social Security Administration 1 to 3 business days for them to verify that you are who you say you are. Because once again, we're preventing fraud. And after that, then we can do a follow-up session. But we try to get FAFSA and TAP done in the same appointment if possible. I would say on average, for both applications, it'll take us an hour, maybe an hour and a half. It all depends on how the website is feeling that day. And if you have your logins.
Yeah. Actually, having the logins is I think, not only important, but once you have that login information, it sticks with you. So you really should put it in a safe place for next year.
Yes, you should. You should. I say, please write it down. I have a paper. I'm like, please write this down. And then they don't. And then I write it down and I hand them the paper and I say, please keep this safe. And then, I'm not a fan of putting stuff on your phone, but if you have a secret password keeper or what have you, you can put it in there. That's fine too. Some people have dedicated folders. This is my financial aid folder. If you do that, that's a great space because every year you can go back. But someday, if you do take out loans, currently, you're going to still use that same login to manage your student loans with the feds for the future. So you always need that login.
Right.
Well, until they change the system substantially again. But for now, and for the last like 10, 15-ish years, it's been an FSA ID.
Okay. And you mentioned that you sit down with people and you help them do these things.
Yes.
And do you have any workshops coming up or anything?
Oh my gosh, we do. And I wish I had the events that I was going to post publicly. So we have a bunch with some of high schools currently. We have events coming up with like local high schools where it's like geared towards their high school seniors. We're going to set up some events that are also like going to be hosted at GCC. I want to try to do some at the campus centers if possible. And we'll pick some dates and times. Admittedly, I don't have those dates all set yet because we're trying to work around the high school senior schedule at the moment. And all the different districts just have so many things that they have to manage.
And they're all on different schedules.
And we have an easier time managing our schedule than they have with theirs.
Right.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if somebody was interested in attending one of those, they could just watch like the college social media, or if you're a GCC student, you could look in my GCC, usually posted there.
I think so. And if not, I will start doing that, or at least getting help with it. I know that financial aid will sometimes send out, hey, AEOC is doing this on this date and time, and here you go. And we'll put up flyers and whatnot on the campus. But we can also just help people in individual appointments. I think that's what a lot of people do with us, is that they just set up individual appointments, especially when they have a student and their parent who needs the assistance. Sometimes we'll do appointments just with the parents. We can do them in person at the main campus or at the campus centers. We can also do them virtually. And although we typically do the normal quote unquote business hours, we also will do select evenings as well. And we don't take as many weekend appointments, but we do some weekend events. We will be at the GCC open house doing FAFSA.
Okay. When is that?
November 8th.
November 8th. Okay. So, sorry, November 8th we can definitely write down.
Oh, yeah. But you have to sign up ahead of time. So I know how many staff need to be there. Because right now it's just me.
All right. And that's through admissions, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Through the admissions office. Okay.
I'll send more and then I'll send it to you.
Okay. And anything you send me, I will post in Brightspace.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll get that there. All right. Cool. All right. So there's our basic investigation. Let's talk about just kind of things that might trip you up. False leads. Okay. Things that might say just send you in the wrong direction. So mistakes students make, I think because some students are just afraid of the FAFSA because they don't know if they're doing it right? So first of all, what are the most common mistakes that you see students and presumably their parents making on the FAFSA, and the things that trip people up most often?
Okay. The biggest mistake comes from the FSA ID. People have to put in their social security number. And if they say, oh, I think it's this number, and it's not that number, I can't help them fix it. They have to reach out to like the help desk through the Department of Education and have them reset it. Or I see I have to say, if you're a parent that's listening, please don't do the form for your child. Have your child do it with you. Because a lot of parents they have great intentions of supporting their student. They don't want them to be stressed. But then sometimes the parents make mistakes too, of they put their social security number in for the student, or vice versa. Or they put their contact information for email and phone number under the student's profile. And then the student is here and they need to make a correction and they have to do something, and we can't log in because the parents' information has been used instead of the students. Also, one other thing, if you are a current high school senior listening to this, please don't use your school email. And same thing for GCC students and other college students. don't use your college email for your FSA ID. You need it to be your personal email. You need it to be an email that you check regularly. The reason why is someday you will not have that school email,
Right.
but you still need access to your FSA ID. So honestly, the biggest mistake comes with the login to start.
Right. So use a permanent email address, and then make sure the student's the one filling out the application.
Yeah, at least for their side of it, because they have a parent side and they have a student side. And if you're an independent student, you just have your side, and occasionally you have to invite a spouse. So the other mistake I see is students thinking that they're independent when they're not independent in terms of financial aid. And that's tough because, you know, we've got students that are 21, 22, 23, and they've been on their own since they were 18. And they're asking me, well, why do I put down I'm independent. I'm paying for my own bills. I live on my own. Why do I need my parents' information? It's just the way that the law is written around it. And unless you meet those strict requirements, you are considered to be dependent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all that sort of detanglement that happens as, you know, we have, you know, we're minting brand new young adults. And at what point do they stop becoming kids and start becoming adults, and the parents have to step back? And all of those questions that really are philosophical questions and emotional questions, and here we are throwing the law in the middle of it.
Right.
Yeah.
I will also add the state has different independent requirements. They have a higher threshold, like a higher age, and that's even harder. We have students who are independent for federal aid and still dependent on state aid. And that's really confusing. So without sharing an individual student exactly, but this is a common thing though. I've seen students who are, once again, 21, 22. They might have a child that they're caring for, and therefore they are provisionally independent for federal aid, because even though they're under 24, they have a child, they provide more than half of their care. But maybe they live with a parent. And because they live with their parents, the state says, we need your parents' information. We need their tax information.
Right.
So that's really frustrating.
Right. Well, we just have to remember it's all to prevent fraud, which
I know
does happen. It does happen. Even, you know, I don't think there's any of the SUNY systems that are immune to that. So at least it's good that they're trying.
Right.
Okay. All right. So that actually is kind of confusing. But
I'm sorry. But I want to say,
not your fault.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you make a little mistake, besides the whole I got my social security number wrong on the FSA ID, you can correct mistakes on your form. You can go back and make corrections. Don't make correction after correction after correction in the same week, because then it becomes a mess. But if you did make a mistake, you can go back and fix it. And that was something I was really fearful of when I was working for Upward Bound. I'd be working with these high school students, and I'd sit there and be thinking, oh my goodness, am I going to mess up their entire future if I accidentally click the wrong button? The answer is no. You can always go back and make a correction.
Okay.
And most of the time you can do it yourself. The social security number is the only thing you can't do yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a good place to mention, but it was, we had a situation in our family where my husband got laid off, and so we filed the FAFSA with him working.
Right.
And the primary, you know, wage earner in our household. And then he got laid off in the early spring, and child going to private college in the fall, and we went, gasp, okay.
Right.
Now what? But he was able to actually file a correction to update with this current situation.
Yeah. There's corrections and then there's appeals. Corrections are the things that you correct on the FAFSA or the TAP application. And then appeals you do with the institution, so your college or university. And oftentimes, if you have a situation where maybe like your income drastically changed, maybe someone is out of work, maybe someone got sick or is on disability, you can always file an appeal, and that can be considered by the financial aid department.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know in our case it was considered, and the financial aid was adjusted, which
Right.
was instrumental in having the kid actually go to college. That being laid off makes a huge difference. There was no way that thing one was going to college. I
Right.
call my kids thing one and thing two. Don't mind me.
Oh, no, it's to protect the privacy. I get
Yes.
it.
Well, I also call them thing one and thing two because they bounce all over the place. But thing one was never going to go to private college if we didn't get that adjusted. So,
Right.
But it's good to know, like a mistake isn't the end of the world, right?
Correct.
It's very reassuring. And we talked a little bit about, students whose parents are divorced or don't live with their parents anymore or supporting themselves, and FAFSA accounts for situations like that.
They do. So the families where the students have parents that are divorced, what's tough is that you have to include the parent who provides more than half of their support. And I often get questions, well, what if my parents have a 50-50 split? And the parents will say, we have exactly a 50-50 split. Mm-hmm. And I say, who provides more support? and I hate to be like that, but that's literally the training we get from the feds, is that they have to determine who is providing more of the support. So you put that parent. If the parent is remarried, the step parent goes on the form too. If the parent who's divorced is engaged but not married, you only report the parent. Unless there is a ring on that finger, yeah, you only include the parent.
All right, and a contract filed at the office. Yes.
Basically.
Yeah.
But if your parents are separated and they still live in the same household, they still both have to be on there. And that's why I hate to be like, oh, I wish I could just say, yep, this is always the case. And you'll often hear financial aid folks say, it depends. You might have heard folks here say, well, it depends. And it's because there's so many situations that we have to look up. Mm-hmm. And I'm not financial aid, but, we have to look up or ask financial aid, and they'll say, hey, it depends. And they ask me more questions till we can figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I'm glad you're doing that and not me.
It's a puzzle.
It is. It is very much like a puzzle. I guess it's true what they say. There's no such thing as free money, right?
Oh, my gosh. Well, it's a puzzle, and I would rather deal with questions like this than tech issues of, wait, there's this glitch. How do we work around this glitch again? Because that's what we had during the first year of the Better FAFSA, was many, many glitches, and even the second year. So,
right. Well, I hear they did get it fairly well nailed down, though.
Yeah, it's really easy for independent students, and it is still sometimes cumbersome for dependent students. But, it's not, you're not filling it out on paper and mailing it in, which is what had to be done years and years ago. Mm-hmm. You are able to import your tax information, which is great, because I had to manually enter in my parents' stuff when I was in undergrad. So,
okay,
little baby steps.
Yeah, and it's good to know that there's help. So,
right.
All right, so let's go to our final segment here, and we're going to talk about what happens next. So, student has successfully filed their FAFSA, right? Mystery solved, right? Okay, well, actually, I still kind of have a question. What happens after you hit submit? After somebody submits their FAFSA, what should they be watching for? Like, what comes next in that process?
Okay. So when you submit the FAFSA, the Department of Education will take the application and then they will process it. And once it's processed, it's sent to whatever schools are listed on the FAFSA. So for students that are applying to schools, it's whatever schools they list on it, which they can now list up to 20 schools, which is pretty intense. Yeah. But for students that are renewing, they just put the school that they're currently attending. And then that school receives it. They will then download it, and then they have to create a package off of it. And once they have created a package, I believe that they do receive either a letter at least a digital letter via their email, and or also a print letter. Usually for admissions, they'll do a print one. And then for students they're renewing, I believe it's just digital. But you can always look in your My GCC if you're a GCC student.
I was going to say, I think it's in My GCC under my dashboard somewhere.
It is. It's under financial aid.
Right.
And you can look at financial aid dashboard, and then you can see what it says for that, whatever academic year you're selecting.
Okay.
But give it at least like a week or two.
To let somebody process it. Okay. So they're going to get some kind of confirmation or some kind of result. And if they don't, they know that they should go back and ask somebody about that. I want to talk about something, and it's a little bit new. So we used to have EFC, Expected Family Contribution, which was, and it got really interesting when we were applying for financial aid, because I had one child, thing one, was applying to private schools and public schools, both wildly different tuitions, and then dorm schools versus local schools, wildly different financial requirements, and yet our EFC was really close on all of them.
Yes.
But now they have this thing called Student Aid Index. So what does that mean, and how is that different? What should students do with that number or that information?
So EFC and SAI, the Student Aid Index, it's pretty similar, but SAI, your Student Aid Index, it's subtracted from your cost of attendance. And when you take your cost of attendance, which is your sticker price at a college, whether that's private or public, 2-year or 4-year, your cost of attendance first is the direct and indirect cost. So direct costs are things that are billable to you, like tuition, room and board, fees. If you're GCC, book smart. If you're not GCC, they might have other fees. Who knows? And then your indirect costs are things like transportation, personal expenses. Those things, they still estimate into your cost of attendance, your sticker price. But they take that, they subtract the Student Aid Index, which is calculated from the FAFSA. It basically is supposed to determine your need similar to the EFC. Okay. And then when they subtract it, it'll say, okay, this is the financial need. And then the financial aid officers can create the packages. So you'll see at public and private schools, the packages will look different because public schools have a way different funding structure than private schools do. And that is a different episode.
Oh, yeah. That's a whole episode all by itself.
Oh, my gosh. But I loved learning about it in grad school. It was just about finance and higher ed. I thought it was going to be a dull course, and it was one of my favorite in my master's program.
Interesting. Interesting.
I hope that answers it, but I understand if you're listening and you're saying, but what is SAI still? It's a calculation to determine partially your financial need, and with your SAI, it also, if you're below a certain threshold, you'll get a Pell Grant, and if you're above a certain threshold, you won't qualify typically.
Right. So they sort of calculate your financial need, and then there are other things that are based off of that.
Yeah. That's also why you have to fill out the FAFSA, because even if you don't qualify for federal grant aid, your school is going to receive your SAI, and they're going to determine what is your need. And some institutions, especially 4-year publics and privates, they might have additional scholarships that are both merit and need-based, or they're only merit-based. Merit being off of your skills, abilities, GPA, involvement in school. Need-based is based off of your tax information.
Right. And yeah, those can really make a difference in some tuitions, especially at a private school.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about, we did talk about this a little bit. I think, if they file their FAFSA and then their financial situation changes.
Right.
And you said something about an appeal. If a parent loses a job, medical emergency, something unexpected, and they update their FAFSA. Is that appeal a difficult process?
So it depends on when the emergency, when the situation happened. Did it happen during the academic year or the year that you're filing, it's always best to ask financial aid first where to do it. Do you make the update on the FAFSA, or do you file the appeal with them? And they have a separate form. Every financial aid department at a college or university has a form for appeals where you list out, okay, my parent lost their job. You might have to provide proof of that. Or I had really expensive medical things because of a car accident. Maybe you're providing proof with bills of that. It's always important to provide the proof, because they're not distrusting you, but there are bad actors out there, once again, committing fraud. And so they're trying to prevent that and make sure that the tax dollars that are being used are being spent with honesty. So when you fill out an appeal, you have to have documentation to back up your claim.
Right. But other than that, it's not like this arduous process. You just have to document what happened.
It's only arduous if you don't have the paperwork and you don't have the if you don't have the documentation. That can be a struggle. But if you have the documentation, it's not too difficult to do the process.
Okay. And that's good to know, because we can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen.
You never know. You never know what's going to happen in the future. And it's tough, because I always talk about, situations of what ifs. And I say, I'm not wishing these bad things upon anyone, but you have to be prepared to just know if something were to happen. And also, just in general, if something were to happen and you're going through a substantial difficulty, talk to your professors, reach out to the dean of students, reach out to your advisor, your success coach, because they need to know so they can help you find resources that will support you.
Right. There are programs, not just financial appeals, but also academic programs and even counseling and wellness programs that we can offer.
Yes. Yeah. There's so many resources, and it's tough because we explain them at, orientation, but I barely remember my own orientation. And that was long and in person. And there's certain things that stick out that were really badly performed skits. But other than that, I didn't know all my resources. And I also was a student who did not want to ask for help because I was afraid of looking silly or stupid, or like it was going to look bad upon me. And I think it was because I was a first gen student and I was afraid of I was just afraid. And I always tell students, and my team tells our students, don't be afraid, because we've been in your shoes. No one has all the answers. Higher education is a professional bureaucracy. No, officially it is, in terms of organizational structures.
Wow.
And, if not everyone knows how to navigate those. We're not born with the innate ability to know, okay, you go to this office, and then this office, and this office. And we're all just doing our best to get through. So it's okay to ask questions. It's okay if you have concerns. And, just ask for help.
I think you're right, and especially in terms of first-generation students, you don't necessarily want to ask for help because you don't know if that's is that expected and normal, or is it something that's abnormal and it's going to make you stand out as a bad student? There's all those kinds of questions swirling around in your head, and one of the things that I hope happens with this podcast is that students who listen to it get to understand that reaching out for help at the college level is very, very normal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been asked all the questions before, and if it's a new question, I'm just excited to find out the answer. Because I'm like, I get to learn something new. And I do want to plug our first generation college celebration on November 5th in the GCC Forum.
Nice.
It's from 3 to 6 p.m. It's going to be a carnival style event. We've got games at different tables and internal and external community partners. And you're welcome to bring your children if you are a student here and you have children. We want it to be something that celebrates the whole student and their families.
Oh, nice. Well, I got to go check that out, being a first-gen student.
Oh, yeah.
So students who are juggling all kinds of things and, they can't keep this all in their head, they can always come to you at AEOC?
Yes. My recommendation is if you've never worked with us, to fill out our intake form, which is on our website, on GCC's website. Or you can email us at aeoc@genesee.edu, and we can send you the intake form. Once that's filled out, we connect you with one of our outreach specialists, and then you will receive their calendar to set up an appointment. And like I said, it could be in person at the main campus or the satellite campuses, or it can be virtual. So we do a very large mixture of in-person and virtual, depending on people's schedules and transportation needs.
I used to tell students that the AEOC application, your intake application, that it was long, but it was worth filling out, because based on filling that out, that you would find every available help resource that the student could possibly qualify for.
Yeah, it's tough because I've often been asked, can you make it shorter? And I include the things that genuinely we need to know, because we want to try to find those resources. And if you are filling it out, we'd be like, oh, we might know of this resource at this place or this place, because my team connects with community agencies that are outside of the college. So we're trying to get people connected to what they need in order to be successful and remove those barriers when it comes to school.
So that might include things like aid programs that have nothing to do with academics, or even food banks or those kinds of things, yes?
Yeah, we have a food bank list in our office. So I know there's a great food pantry at the college, but for our online students, if you can't make it to the campus, it's really important that if you have that need, to go utilize the different food banks and pantries. Some places will ask you to show your income, other places won't. So that type of resource. Sometimes we'll share about, if you have a disability or health or medical concern. We are connected with Independent Living of Western New York, so we might share their events and say, hey, this would be a great opportunity to learn about these resources.
Right. People tend to think about, there's this whole stereotype of a college student as a young 20-something who is, healthy, academically gifted, gung-ho, bright, fresh-faced, books. But when we look at our online students trend older, and their parents, and they're working, and they're trying to go to school at the same time.
Right.
And usually the reason they're trying to go to school is because the job they have right now is just not working for their family.
Right.
So, any bit of help that they can get to get through it, so that they can then get on to the next step in their lives, that's always wonderful.
I'd say about 2/3 of our students in our program are 25 and older. So we really try to focus on those adults that are quote unquote, non-traditional, or, they also say post-traditional or adult learners, but they're all of our students. And I don't like to call students kids, because like I said, I mostly work with students that are caregivers. They're caring for their parents. They're caring for children. They have real responsibilities. Many people have real responsibilities, but you know what I mean.
Yes. Yeah. It's not that typical student that you're thinking of. It's somebody who's really looking for a second chance very often. When we talk about our online learning students, there's the students who are trying to get ahead, and there's the students who are trying to get a second chance. So that's just, they're not who you think they are. And, definitely many of them can benefit from AEOC services. So AEOC@genesee.edu, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll put that in the comments on this episode once it publishes.
Thank you.
So,
and I appreciate you letting me talk for an hour, because I know that this is normally a shorter time frame. But financial aid, I could talk for hours. I'm not going to subject you to that. But I really don't. I was so afraid to talk about financial aid and to do financial aid, and the FAFSA was just such a mystery to me. So I'm so happy that I understand things now, because it allows me to tell my students and have them understand and make informed decisions about their education.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you for coming on our show. We really appreciate having you here. So thank you to Christina Mortellaro. That brings us to the end of episode 8, Who's Afraid of FAFSA? And thank you so much for being here tonight and helping us crack the case on financial aid. And we really appreciate your time and expertise. And yeah, we could talk more about this, but we're done hearing about it for now. So we usually try and give students a step, and our one step for this week, if you haven't filed your FAFSA yet, don't wait. Start getting your documents together or just get it done. Get that FSA ID out of the way so that you have it and you're ready for it, right? And if you need help, reach out to Christina and the team at AEOC or talk to somebody in financial aid because, again, as with so many other things, you don't have to solve this mystery alone. I want to Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a like, drop a comment about what stood out to you in this episode, even if you're not listening live. And if you've got more questions, bring them to our next live stream. We do read the chat, and we do want to hear from you. So I'm Lloyd from the online learning team. Thanks for listening to Study With Me. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. And until then, keep taking those small steps forward. What do we always say at the end of our episodes? We say progress, not perfection.